Hello, right now is July 2nd and it is 8:04 p.m. Basically, this video is about the last talking point that law enforcement pretty much has now. Law enforcement is trying to say that it is my fault as a child if someone said anything bad around me as a child, since I was only an 11-year-old child in the year 2001, and that is when anyone could have said anything bad around me. But the thing about it is, there are certain things that has to be taken into consideration first. First of all, the thing that has to be taken into consideration is the fact that law enforcement has done absolutely nothing since 2001 when this investigation started till right today, except for run sex schemes and money frauds with every single adult that I've ever known in my life, including anyone who could have said anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child. So basically what happened was, when I was an 11-year-old child, my mother had already talked to law enforcement, letting them know that she was fully aware of the fact that someone could have said something bad around me as a child, but that it was not her who said anything bad around me as a child, and that this was only due to the forced necessity of a single mother working at fast food restaurants or in factories at nighttime. So basically, law enforcement knew, and they were informed by my mother when I was an 11-year-old child. What did law enforcement do about it? Now, the thing about it is, the courts have to understand the fact that law enforcement's job is not of that of a news reporter. They cannot just go over there, report on the news, and if they're guilty, like how law enforcement obviously is right now, then they cannot just hand over their talking points as news reporters to someone else to report, especially if the person that they're handing it to, like Farrah the Greedy Framer, has already tried 3 different methods of money grab techniques against me, where she tried to blackmail me with price tags of money after her false testimonies and lies were caught against me on November 20th, and the subsequent lies that were caught against me right afterwards. Those lies that were caught right after November 20th were already confessed to the government informant while she and her siblings were fabricating the November 20th false testimony against me, that those were also lies as well. Now, the thing that the courts have to understand is the fact that the history for someone like Farrah the Greedy Framer. Now, Farrah the Greedy Framer on November 20th, 2025, fabricated a false testimony against me where the crime inciting did not even exist. It was fully fabricated and given it to her by the government itself. Now, the thing about it is, the subsequent lies that she made against me, those were confessed to the government informant as being complete and total lies. She had already confessed, she or her Framer sisters had already confessed to the government informant as those being complete and total lies as well. So basically, yes, these talking points are being given to someone like her who has a history of making lies against me to enviously lock up my brain savant only because I refused to marry her abnormal-looking weirdo daughter, whom she's been advertising for the past 2 weeks, starting June 16th, every single day, despite me saying from June 16th, I do not want your daughter, I do not want your daughter, I do not want your daughter. I said it over and over again every single day since June 16th, and she was still sending it. Basically a forced marriage kind of thing, last resort of money grab. Basically, she started doing these things on February 21st, sending me blackmail price tags of mainly millions of dollars. The most common one was for $60 million that was sent to me 8 times. And if you watch the last video, it will tell you that the exact dates and times for those. Then she tried incest on March 7th 3 times. And if you watch the last video, it will tell you the exact times. And the fact that she was already told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that this is sending a porn star's picture with your name fire on it is an open advertisement for incest. She did not care. She wanted the money grab money and get an illegal assurance of money before my brain savant would get freed, something that law enforcement went around telling everyone about, due to which I have these people running after me and harassing me, enviously trying to rock up my brain savant. Their motive became exceptionally clear when 2 of their main false testimonies, November 20th and the subsequent one that they had already confessed to the government informant as being false, was already confessed to the government informant while they were fabricating November 20th, and just the fact that as soon as they were caught with both of these false testimonies, Farrah the Greedy Framer went ahead and she did what she was going to do, which was run after the money. So after February 21st, she basically started blackmailing me with price tags of money. The most relevant and common one was $60 million, mainly because she sent it to me 8 times, and it was mainly because she realized that my brain savant would get freed anyways, might as well get illegal assurances of money, since government informant was the person who fabricated the false testimony with us on February November 20th, 2025, we told him or her everything already. The fact that we're only after money and basically locking it up due to the greed and greed for money, envy for money, and making sure no one else gets it. So might as well go for greed then. They also told the government informant that they had subsequent lies that they were going to make against me after November 20th to make sure that there was no way that my brain savant would get freed. These people are being given these talking points by law enforcement. People like Farah the Greedy Framer, who was immediately removed from the spokesperson stand as soon as it was announced that there was a government informant. These people basically confessed to the government informant not only about November 20th, making a false testimony based on a crime inciting that did not even exist, for which Farah was fully involved, due to which she was removed from the spokesperson stand as soon as a government informant was announced. Now, the thing about it is just the fact that afterwards they made subsequent lies that they had already confessed to the government informant as being complete and total lies, and yet Farah the Greedy Framer was still there. Now, the thing about it is, even after these envy tricks of making one lie after another, she goes for greed. Starting February 21st, she sends me $60 million price tags, 8 times at least. The last video it gives you all the times she sent it to me, 8 times, $60 million, at least 8 times it was sent to me. And then after that, you had incest. March 7, 2026, she tried to send me porn star's picture named Sunny Leon with her name Farah written on it, even though she was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that this was an open advertisement for incest. She did not care. She just wanted the money, since she was already found out to be lying, and they had already confessed to the government informant way too much. She also knew that her sister, the spokesperson's mother, confessed way too much to the government informant. And Farah the Greedy Framer basically knew that the government informant had been confessed to with way too much for them to try to hide their motive at that time. So what Farah the Greedy Framer ended up doing is blackmailing me with price tags of $60 million, 8 times at least. And she only did that to try to get illegal assurances of money before my brain savant would get freed anyways, since the people fabricating false testimonies against me were now caught to being liars. Fabricators working on extreme envy due to their daughter not getting my brain savant money, and due to which, for the past 2 weeks, Farah the Greedy Framer has been sending me ads for her abnormal looking weirdo daughter, Zara, since June 16th. And I've been saying no every single day, and it's like a forced marriage. She's trying to do it. And even though I'm saying no, because she thinks that she's going to get me to marry her abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara and marry her without prenups, obviously, since it's a forced marriage, and the fear of false testimonies. You know how good Farah is at exaggerating false testimonies. In 2019, she made a false testimony against someone in U.S. law enforcement, due to which the Indian intelligence is whom she went and she made it to. Basically, she was sleeping with someone in U.S. law enforcement. One day she finds out that the person is not the big shot that he claimed to be. Instead, he's some poor broke guy. And so what she ended up doing was, in order to get revenge for having to sleep with someone who was not whom she thought he was, she basically not as rich as she thought he was, not any big shot or anything of that sort. She goes to the Indian intelligence and makes a false testimony against him, claiming that he is trying to rape and murder her, even though she knew who he was. She was sleeping with him for a while, obviously. And the Indian intelligence, basically what they do is they contact me, they go in, they lecture Joe Biden on human rights crimes, and basically Farah the Greedy Framer gets one country to lecture another country based on an exaggerated false testimony on an individual, they claiming that they were about to rape and murder her, despite that individual being someone she was already sleeping with literally probably every single day. And now suddenly she finds out that they're not the big shot that they claim to be. She wants revenge for them to be able to sleep with her, so she goes and she fabricates a false testimony against them. We know this for a fact, since her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, would talk to that person all day and every day, and she would just be like, oh yeah, that person, he almost raped and murdered me. And the next day she goes back to court to fabricate false testimonies and exaggerations against me, make sure that my brain savant money that my dad, the Greedy Framer, cannot ever get a penny of, my mother and loved ones cannot get either. Now, the thing about it is, these talking points for the child thing have been given to someone like Farah the Greedy Framer, who's lied over and over again against me. And not only has she lied, she went for her money grab technique using blackmail price tags, with most relevant one being $60 million sent at least 8 times to me, starting February 21st. As soon as she found out that too much had been confessed to the government informant, the government informant had basically gotten everything out of them, and the government basically knew that these people were only enviously locking up my brain savant using false testimonies and lies, and due to extreme envy of my brain savant money. And now, so Farah went for greed, and she started blackmailing me with price tags of millions of dollars starting February 21st, mainly $60 million sent to me 8 times. You got to look at the timing of this. February 21st, right when she gets caught, and found out that these people are liars, fabricators, sees that the government informant was there and whom it was, and that obviously the government informant had been confessed to with everything, is when she goes for greed. Now, she does blackmail price tags of millions of dollars. Then she tries incest on March 7, 2026. Sends me a porn star's picture named Sunny Leon with her name Farah written on it, even though she was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that this is an open advertisement for incest. She did not care a bit about it. Now, the third way is the most recent way, which is forced marriage. For the past 2 weeks, she's been harassing me through law enforcement, sending me ads for her abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara every single day since July 16th, every single day, just to try to force me to marry her abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara. Now, the thing about it is, yeah, this child thing. Okay, someone could have said something about around the child when I was an 11-year-old child, which is when the war occurred. The thing about it is, this talking point should be used by law enforcement, not Farah the Greedy Framer. Farah the Greedy Framer was not there. She's being given this talking point because law enforcement knows how good she is at exaggerating false testimonies. November 20th was so well exaggerated despite the crime and setting not even existing that news reporters, no news anchor was able to smile on live TV for days after November 20th, only for us to find out that the crime and setting did not even exist. When Farah the Greedy Framer wanted to get revenge on someone in U.S. law enforcement, she went and she fabricated false testimony against them to Indian intelligence. So well fabricated and exaggerated that testimony was that Indian intelligence had to contact me over here to let me know that my dad's younger sister was about to get raped and murdered by someone in U.S. law enforcement. And then the Indian government had to go lecture Joe Biden on human rights crimes, only for us to now find out that that person was someone that Farah the Greedy Framer had been sleeping with, and that the only reason she was even making a false testimony against that individual was due to the fact that he claimed to be a big shot, and she finds out that he wasn't. She wanted to get revenge from him for being scammed into sleeping with him, basically. And so, because he wasn't the big shot that he claimed to be, so she fabricated a false testimony against him, claiming that he almost raped and murdered her. And we know this for a fact because yeah, and it was so well exaggerated that the Indian government had to contact me, let me know that Farah the Greedy Framer, my dad's younger sister, was almost raped and murdered by someone in U.S. law enforcement, and the Indian government had to go lecture Joe Biden on human rights crimes, only for us to now find out that her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, would talk to that person all day, night long, from morning till night, and she would just be like, oh yeah, that person. He almost raped and murdered me. Well, anyways, tomorrow I'll help you out with your case again. Make sure that your ex-wife doesn't get any of the money you can't get. This proves without a reasonable doubt that Farah the Greedy Framer exaggerated that false testimony, just like how she exaggerated November 20th, and that these talking points of the child thing are being given to Farah the Greedy Framer only because law enforcement cannot use it themselves, since law enforcement right now is stubbornly running their money fraud, collecting their money for which they started with the unemployment disability in 2022, and law enforcement is not going to stop that, because they basically rely on that money. It's the savings for the fraud that they created. So they have to rely on that money, and they're not going to let go of it. They're absolutely guilty because of the fact that since 2001, all they did was run sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws. So law enforcement is not going to use these talking points themselves. Instead, they want someone else to use it for them. And that person is going to be Farah the Greedy Framer, whom law enforcement has given these talking points to. So now what happened is Farah the Greedy Framer has been given these talking points that she has absolutely nothing to do with, while she's sending me ads to forcefully try to get me to marry her abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara since June 16th. And Yeah. And so basically, there are a few things that people have to know about these talking points, basically. First of all, law enforcement wants to say in court, like news reporters, that someone might have said something bad around me as a child. First of all, the first thing is the fact that when I was 11-year-old child is when the war occurred, and my mother had already talked to law enforcement at that time, letting them know that she was fully aware of the fact that someone might have said something bad around me as a child, but that she was going to take care of it as soon as she could, as a single mother could, and that I was only there due to force and necessity. Law enforcement found that that was absolutely true. Due to the fact that if someone did say anything bad around me as a child after my mother had already talked to law enforcement, for one, my mother would not be present there. Where would she be at? She would either be working at fast food restaurants in the afternoon, or if it would be nighttime, she'd be working at factories. So my mother was not there, so she was telling the truth about the fact that it was only due to the force and necessity of a single mother that anyone could have said something bad around me as a child, and that she would take care of it as soon as she could as a single mother. The other reason you know for a fact that this is absolutely true is due to the fact that it would always be outside of my own house that someone could have said something bad around me, and only when my mother would be at work, and my mother would not ever be present in that setting. The only time it would be at my house would be when my mother had to work at factories at nighttime, and she would let someone like Uncle Joey stay there so that Uncle Joey could watch me at nighttime. So basically, yeah, my mother had been telling the truth about that. And also, the other thing is, my mother told the truth about is the fact that she said that she would remove me from all settings, um, especially with law enforcement's BFFs, the moment she could, as a single mother. She fulfilled that promise. Law enforcement is fully aware of that fact as well. So she was never present in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child. And the other thing is, she had already talked to law enforcement beforehand, letting them know that she was fully aware that someone could have said something bad around me as a child. And the third thing is, she made a promise that she fulfilled, that she would remove me from every setting the moment she could as a single dependent mother, which she did the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Never for me to ever be seen around any of law enforcement's BFFs ever again. So the single mother is not to be blamed. She wasn't ever there, okay, in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said, which means that the setting was outside of my own house, except for the time when she had to work at factories at nighttime, and that it was also the fact that she was never there when the person could have said something bad around me, and that the fact that they're not letting me talk, and the fact that she made a promise which she fulfilled. The moment I became a mentally mature enough child, I was never seen in any settings ever again where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. Basically, my mother made a promise that she fulfilled. Could not have been her fault since she was not ever present there. And that phone conversation from Russia with my mother will prove that my mother was disgusted by people that were watching me, like Uncle Joey at that time, since they would go look for a woman online the entire time, which is the only thing she knew about since she was at work when they would be watching me. And that, yeah, that was the only source she had since they would watch me for free. That was the only option she pretty much had. So that was my mother, and she's totally free of blame. And since my mother did remove me from every setting that was no longer needed, the moment I became a mentally mature enough child in this world, I also cannot be blamed. Since children that do not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity in this world cannot be blamed for something that an adult around them might have said. Now, you have to look at what everyone did. All the adults. What did the adults do? So, first of all, the first adult is my mother. She was never present around any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child who had not even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity yet in this world. Okay? And the other thing is, she had talked to law enforcement beforehand and letting them know and making a promise with them that she fulfilled the moment I became a mentally mature enough child. Never for me to ever be seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again. And I have never lived with anyone else except for my mother throughout my entire life. Never even lived in the same country as my dad, the greedy framer. Never even talked to him on the phone. The facts and evidences will show that. Proving through facts and evidence is the fact that a person like my dad, the greedy farmer, whom I've never even lived in the same country with or talked on the phone with, could not have had any influence on me whatsoever. Okay, I never, like, yeah. So basically, that's that. That takes care of that. Um, Basically, my mother fulfilled her promise. The moment I became a mentally mature enough child in this world, my mother fulfilled her promise that same exact moment. And yeah, so basically, we have to look at what all the adults did. My mother had already talked to law enforcement beforehand when I was an 11-year-old child, let them know that she made a promise to them that she would remove me from every setting that where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me the moment I would become mentally mature enough child in this world. Okay. She fulfilled that promise, and I was never seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. So my mother had notified law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, when she had the opportunity to not talk or say anything at all. So now it's law enforcement's turn. What did they do? Law enforcement basically did absolutely nothing from that time since 2001, except for run sex games with Uncle Joy's in-laws, due to which they were giving reciprocal sex ads to Uncle Joy in the year 2023 in the November 2023 funeral, which means that law enforcement's job was never done. Law enforcement basically ran sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, and they ran money fraud with with other people. I have no clue whom, but I know they've been running money fraud, and that their money is still being collected till this day as we speak. So basically, there were adults in that setting. Those adults had responsibilities. My mother fulfilled her responsibility. The moment I became a mentally mature enough child, my mother made sure that I was not present in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me. And I've only lived with my mother my entire life. I've never even lived in the same country as my dad, the greedy farmer, never even talked to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone whom I've never lived with in the same country or talked to on the phone to have had any influence on my life whatsoever. So basically, it was my mother that I lived with my entire life. And from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, my mother removed me from every setting no longer needed, since now she could go to work and I could stay at home alone. Whereas now, so before I had gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, you have to remember the fact that my mother had already talked to law enforcement. She had already told law enforcement that he is a child, not even mentally mature enough yet. And I know someone might have said something bad around him as a child, but I will remove him the first moment I can as a single mother who's dependent. And my mother was also never seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me. And the fact that she made a promise to law enforcement that she fulfilled the moment I became a mentally mature enough child in this world, never for me to ever again be seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. Other people in the family I've never lived with either. I've never lived with Farrah the Greedy Framer. I never lived with anyone. And we know for a fact that this is true since law enforcement is basically a witness. They've been watching me 24/7 since I was an 11-year-old child. I've only lived with my mother, and that's it. These people are basically money grabbed. And we know this for a fact since June 16th. Every single day, Farrah the Greedy Framer has been sending me ads for her daughter, abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara, even though I've been saying every single day that I do not want your daughter. I'm not going to marry her. She started on February 21st with blackmail price tags of money after her subsequent lies after November 20th were caught to be confessed lies. And she thought, man, what else could have been confessed to the government informant if this was confessed to as well? So she went with greed and started sending me blackmail price tags for millions of dollars, mainly $60 million that was sent to me 8 times by Farrah the Greedy Framer. And the third method of money extraction was basically incest, where she sent me a porn star's picture named Sunny Leone with her name Farrah written on it 3 times on March 7, 2026, even though she was told on February 11th that this is an open advertisement for incest. These people were basically money grabs, enviously locking up my brain savant because she knew that her daughter could not get any of the brain savant money. And every time she would get caught lying, she would basically go ahead and try to get money one way or another. She's already been caught trying 3 different methods: incest, blackmail, price tags of millions of dollars, and also forced marriage. Forced marriage request sent through law enforcement. That last time was June 16th, 2 weeks ago. It was sent to me every single day. And these are the people given these talking points to by law enforcement. Okay, so I just want to read off a little bit of my journal that I talk about this talking point of a child. That doesn't make any sense since law enforcement did absolutely nothing. So talking points of someone saying something even remotely considered bad around me as a child when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child cannot hold against me in the first place, but would instead only hold against law enforcement and their own BFFs like Uncle Joey instead, due to the fact that law enforcement has done absolutely nothing since 2001 when this investigation started, except for running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws, along with money fraud later on that are still being run with money from the savings of the money fraud still being collected till this very day today. Basically, in 2022, the person who fabricated the group chat false testimony against me overseas for my overseas pharmacy school, that person in law enforcement needed money, and so law enforcement had to arrange that money for him. They basically ran disability fraud first through someone over here in the US. The person would claim to be disabled, and the next day when the disability fraud would get rejected, suddenly they're walking again and they're applying for unemployment. It's very sad. It's not funny, but this is what law enforcement was doing. Law enforcement would basically turn a blind eye to the fraud, and they would basically tell this person, you keep some, we keep some, and this is the contact number, wire transfer number, wire transfer this money to this person in law enforcement, a friend of ours. And that friend of theirs in law enforcement is basically the same exact person who fabricated the group chat testimony against me from my overseas pharmacy school overseas. So yeah, basically that money is stubbornly being collected till this very day since law enforcement ran the fraud, and so the savings is still there, so they're going to get the savings, and it's no secret that as soon as the case is done, they're going to go back to running the fraud again, where you keep some, we keep some goes right back, just like how they've been running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, due to which law enforcement had to provide Uncle Joey with sex games at the November 2023 funeral, so aggressively ran that foreign statesmen were quoting Uncle Joey out of anger that they weren't helped. The fact that law enforcement has done nothing but run sex games since 2001, along with money fraud that are still being run till this very day today, along with the fact that law enforcement's BFFs like Assad, who were present in the wedding crime that law enforcement tried to frame me for in 2023, are running around doing nothing but becoming BFFs with law enforcement, to the point that Assad is narrating in this trial while never having been questioned for the wedding crime that law enforcement wished to frame me for in the year 2023. Clearly proves from facts and evidences the fact that law enforcement themselves were fully involved in the wedding crime and criminals in the act by covering over a crime and never having asked a single question, a single person present in the crime scene, a single question, and only remembering the crime in the year 2023 after August 25th, 2023, when I won my case, only due to an extreme obsession with my brain savant and wanting to frame me for anything rather than letting my brain savant being seen performing out in the open for even 30 minutes. So basically what happened is law enforcement, on August 25th, 2023, I won my case fair and square. The court saw that from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, my mother fulfilled her promise and that she made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, and I was never seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could ever be said around me ever again. So basically, yeah, the court found me innocent, and they gave me the victory on August 25th, 2023. I won my case fair and square. So I told law enforcement right then and there, I have a brain savant. Triple savant increases in power over time. I know you have a brain scanner. I couldn't care less. I just want to study now. So law enforcement, obviously being themselves, tried to frame me for a wedding incident. To which I replied to law enforcement by telling me I never had the money to go to this wedding because my mother worked at fast food restaurants in the afternoon and she worked at factories at nighttime. She's not going to take money out of that to go attend a wedding with me. So I never went to this wedding, but you just confessed to a crime you in law enforcement committed. How do I know this? Because in the year 2023, from the start to finish, January till December, law enforcement were running their sex schemes with Uncle Joey at the November 2023 funeral, and they were running their money fraud the entire year. So basically, if there was a crime committed, it was never investigated or prosecuted. Law enforcement basically covered it over. And if it was a wedding crime, then obviously Assad would be present there because Assad could afford to go. His parents are not rich, but they're okay. It's like the average person makes in the U.S. He's got both parents and they're not fast food workers. So he could afford to go to a wedding, and I'm 100% sure he was there. The other thing is, Assad was always BFS with all the adults in the family, which means that Assad would not only be present at the crime scene, he would be involved, and throughout the entire wedding, he would be with the people who committed the crime rather than the rest of the 300 people that would be present at that wedding. So in 2023, I told law enforcement, I was like, poverty has been a blessing in disguise for me. I would not be present at this wedding, but you just confessed to a crime you committed in law enforcement, sir. You committed this crime, not me, by covering over it and now trying to frame me for it. So in 2023, this wedding incident crime, law enforcement basically committed by covering over it. This is what they've been doing since day one. They couldn't care less about anything until they found out about my brain savant. And after August 25th, 2023, they wanted to frame me for something. So they tried to frame me for something that I had nothing to do with. But by trying to do this desperately, they basically confessed to a crime that they committed themselves. This is law enforcement history. I've only met my dad 3 times in my entire life. One of those times was in 2011. And in 2011, my dad, the Greedy Framer, was basically giving sermons from his house, recruiting people to join terror groups and commit mass murder every single day, all day, every day. And basically what happened was law enforcement obviously found out about it. They had one of 2 options, either tip him off or investigate him. What do you think law enforcement's going to do? Look at their history. Obviously they didn't investigate it. They tipped him off. Because of which one day suddenly he's giving sermons on mass murdering innocent human beings every day. One day suddenly he just stops. And that's when I knew something definitely happened. People don't just change overnight. How many people join terror groups? We don't know. How many people have been mass murdered? We don't know. The most dangerous man and the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life is my dad, the Greedy Framer. One of 3 times I've ever met him giving sermons to mass murdered innocent human beings by calling them over to his house in the masses and giving these sermons out. What the effects of these were, we don't know. How many people joined terror groups, we don't know. Why do we not know this? Because law enforcement never investigated it. Instead, they tipped him off. Exactly what they do. So at the wedding incident, basically, law enforcement obviously never invest. Like, I'm not psychic. I don't have psychic powers. No one tells me these things. I just know it because I know these people. Trust me, you don't have to be Nostradamus to know. So basically in the wedding incident, law enforcement basically, what they did was they covered over it. And the people that were involved in the crime, they ran sex schemes and money fraud with them. I don't know for a fact, but I know them. And if you investigate it, you'll find out that I'm telling the truth. This is what law enforcement has always been doing. So when my dad, the Greedy Framer, suddenly stopped in 2011 from recruiting people to join terror groups one day, yeah, he didn't have a change of heart. Let me just put it that way. He was tipped off by law enforcement. I know this for a fact, knowing their history. So in the wedding incident crime that they tried to frame me for in 2023, well, guess what? Law enforcement covered it over, and the people who were involved in the crime later on just ran sex schemes and money fraud with law enforcement. Yeah, so basically that is what happened. So, yeah, Assad is a prime example of the kind of BFS law enforcement has. Instead of, along with someone like Uncle Joey, obviously, you know the history with Uncle Joey. They were helping him out so aggressively at the funeral in November 2023, for which I refused multiple times, and they did torture and harass me. I couldn't care less. I was not going to help them out. My mother told me when I was a child, don't ever go near Uncle Joey ever again. You know for a fact, and I'm telling the truth on this, since if you look at the phone conversations that I had with my mother from Russia, you will find out that I'm telling the truth on this. So basically, yes, that is what happened. And so basically, in the year 2023, after August 25th, 2023, they tried to frame me for this wedding incident crime due to not wanting to see my brain savant. So when I won my case, only on August 25th, 2023, due to an extreme obsession with my brain savant and wanting to wanting to frame me for anything rather than letting my brain savant being seen performing out in the open for even 30 minutes is why they did this. This clearly explains why law enforcement would need narrators in this trial, like Farrah the Greedy Framer, to narrate for law enforcement these talking points of law enforcement's own BFFs saying anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child yet in the world, to even be left at home alone yet in life, yet, as my mother said herself on February 15th, at 8:30 p.m. Despite my mother not knowing what the right or wrong answer was, and nor knowing that there is even a trial or investigation going on at this time. So basically, what happened is, what happened is law enforcement has been given their talking points to people like Farrah the Greedy Framers. Their talking points that they're giving to her is due to the fact that the people who could have said something around me as a child, when I was an 11-year-old child, when the war occurred, I wasn't even mentally mature enough yet. And when I was even remotely mentally mature enough yet in the world, guess what? My mother took me out of every setting, just like how she said she would when I was an 11-year-old child. So basically, my mother was the only one who did the right thing. She talked to law enforcement when she had the ability to not need to talk to anyone. And she basically told them that, yes, my child might have said something considered remotely bad, but it's not my fault, and I will remove him from every setting that's not needed as soon as he gains the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Right now, I need to put him anywhere I can while I'm working, and I can't leave him at home alone because he's not mentally mature enough child yet. So basically, the law enforcement was told, and she fulfilled her promise. The moment I became a mentally mature enough child in this world, I was never seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could ever be said around me ever again, despite me only living with my mother my entire life. Never even lived in the same country as my dad, the Greedy Framer. Never even talked to him on the phone, making it impossible for someone whom I've never lived with in the same country or even talked to on the phone have had any influence on my life whatsoever. Law enforcement was watching me the entire time. I never lived with anyone else except for my mother. Not Farrah the Greedy Framer, not anyone at all. So basically, even when I was a not mentally mature enough child yet, if anyone could have said something around me, it would be only law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, who've done absolutely nothing with law enforcement except for run sex schemes and money fraud since 2001, till this very day today. And so giving these talking points to Farrah the Greedy Framer does not make any sense, since she's trying to force me to marry her daughter every single day since June 16th, despite me saying no. And this is only after she's been caught lying over and over and over and over again. And so basically, law enforcement cannot narrate the points on law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, saying anything even remotely considered bad around me, since if law enforcement did, the courts would soon find out that I was only present near any of law enforcement's BFFs until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Since I then no longer needed to be adult supervised by anyone anymore, as my mother said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. So on February 15 at 8:30 p.m., my mother, without knowing what the right or wrong answer was, basically said it straight out. I had to put you wherever I could, till you gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, because I had to go to work every day, whether it was fast food restaurants in the afternoon or in factories at nighttime. But as soon as you gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I no longer needed that, which is why I never put you anywhere when I used to go to work. Plain and simple. She didn't know what the right or wrong answer was. She didn't know there was an investigation going on. And yet when asked the question, she gave the exact answer that I always say, which means that I'm telling the truth. Also, the fact that she was never present in that settings, where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child, also proves it. Also, the fact that the setting was never at my house. By the way, the last point proved that she was at work, and it was due to the force and necessity of a single mother. that they're not letting me talk, which means that I'm telling the truth when I said that, and that also means that and when I was an 11-year-old child, my mother told the truth, that told my force of necessity ends. I just have to put him wherever I can. And then as soon as he gains the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, he's going to stay at home after that. And that's exactly what happened. Except for when she used to work at factories at nighttime, then she had to let Uncle Joey stay at our house at night. But that was it. And until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, and after that, I was never seen around anyone ever again. And these facts and evidences prove that fact. The fact that my mother would never be around there. If anyone did say anything around me, even remotely considered bad, I would not even be a mentally mature enough child yet, and that it will only last till I became a mentally mature enough child in this world. And then it was law enforcement's job, since my mother had already talked to law enforcement about this when I was an 11-year-old child, explaining everything, making a promise that she fulfilled the moment I became a mentally mature enough child, never to be seen in any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. How did law enforcement do their job? I think we all know the answer to that. And that I was never found near any of law enforcement's BFFs anymore throughout my entire life after gaining the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, while law enforcement were present with their BFFs like Uncle Joey and any others who could have said anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child, when I had not even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity yet in the world to be left at home alone. From that time when I was a child, when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child yet, to this very day today, where law enforcement is still running their sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws today, that started in the year 2001, and it was due to these sex games that started in the year 2001 that law enforcement were seen aggressively, and I repeat the word aggressively, helping to run sex games ads for Uncle Joey at the funeral in November 2023, due to which foreign statesmen like Pervez Elahi started quoting Uncle Joey right after the funeral in 2023. Basically, foreign governments were watching this very carefully. They saw the anger that was fulminating after the funeral due to the fact that I refused. And I refused, you could check the reason, my conversation with my mother from Russia will easily prove to you why I refused law enforcement. My mother told me when I was a child never to go near Uncle Joey ever again after he was caught with an online chat looking for women online all day. I never saw Uncle Joey after that point when I was a child ever again, despite law enforcement trying multiple times throughout my entire life to try to get me to meet Uncle Joey, to go run sex games for Uncle Joey as the uncle for the man who with the triple brain savant. Law enforcement went around telling everyone about. I would never say it to anyone, or else you see for the greedy framer, you see her behavior. Third money grab technique, starting June 16 with the forced marriage request. Every single day, I've been saying, I don't want your daughter, your abnormal looking weirdo daughter. I don't want her. I do not want her. Like June 16th, like every single day. It's like, do you want my daughter or do you want my daughter? It's like what's the third option? It's like, there is no third option. Like, that's like, and pretty much this is the third money grab technique. The first one was starting February 21st. It's like $60 million sent to me 8 times. Okay, I'm not giving anyone any $60 million. How about $0.00? How about that? I'm not giving anyone anything. And so, yeah, keep sending it to me. Blackmail does not work on me. I've had a lot of tough times in life. It's toughened me up. As hard as that might be to believe, it's also true. And yeah, that was the first way. The second way was incest. Incredibly disgusting. Shame on you, for the greedy framer, for trying this. March 7th, 2026, she sent me a porn star's picture with her name Fur written on it 3 times, even though she was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that this is an open advertisement for incest, and incest is illegal. But when the blackmail price tags didn't work, and law enforcement basically told Fur the greedy framer, we tried the blackmail price tags, and he doesn't look like he's interested. He's not even scared. He's not going to give you any money. Not even going to give you any fake assurances of any money. His brain savant's going to get free. He's not going to give you any money. And so far, let me try incest. She tried that on March 7th, that disgusting, ugly old predator framer. And so, yeah. And now for the past 2 weeks, starting June 16th, she's been trying what? Forced marriage with her abnormal looking weirdo daughter named Zara. Well, anyways, yeah. November 2023, you take something from someone, you got to give it back to them, right? So since 2001, they've been taking sex schemes from Uncle Joey's in-laws, so you got to give it back to him. And I'm not your guy. Like, I'm not going to go help you run a sex scheme ad with him, especially when my mother told me when I was a child, don't ever go near him. So I never went near him. Like, law enforcement tried it multiple times. They're like, you want to help us? I'm like, no. And then they put an ad on my YouTube, like Uncle Joey from Full House. I was like, he was not Uncle Joey from Full House. Okay, he was the only option my mother had, and it was not a good option, which you could tell from the phone conversation from Russia. My mother was disgusted by these individuals herself. She didn't have any other options. She was a single mother, dependent, working at fast food restaurants and factories at nighttime. Where else is she? She was no Uncle Joey from Full House. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And so they tortured me, with stomach torture all day long, and stared me down in grocery stores. And I didn't care. I was like, I'm still not doing this. So the funeral in November 2023, law enforcement tried to get me to go to the funeral. I was the only one. I didn't go. I was like, I'm not going. I know what you want from there. I'm not going to do it. If I go there, like, they run a sex scheme ad, make a video of me, and then he would come over to me and meet me really nicely, and then make a video of it, and then show it to all the women, be like, oh, he's the uncle for the guy with the triple savant. Look at how nice he is. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this. I didn't go. And then afterwards, he fulminated with so much anger with law enforcement that for Rizalai, he started quoting him. I was like, yes. I was like, for Rizalai, every time I ruin like sex schemes for law enforcement, it's like such a great, like, satisfying feeling, like you would not believe. Like, I don't want it myself. I wouldn't take it, but I'm not gonna let someone else take it either. Not in my name. Not in my name. Yeah, like, obviously, like, the like, law enforcement and their weirdos, like, try to convince me recently that they went, and someone from my high school ended up doing pretty well, and they tried to convince me that like girls were like sleeping with him. I was like 0% chance, absolutely 0% chance. Anyone who's even remotely successful or has a high percentage chance of being so knows for a fact the money grabs out there. There's no way anyone is gonna do that. We're like, well, I'm not gonna say I am, but like, yeah. Well, I've got a pretty high probability, according to artificial intelligence, if you read the reports for multiple tests. But yeah, obviously, like, with the $60 million price tag coming from Fire the Greedy Framer, then she's trying incest on March 7th, 2026, despite being told that that ugly old weirdo predator was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. This is open advertisement for incest. You should not do this. She still did it. She wanted the money. And since June 16th, it's just been like, you want to marry my daughter? And the next day it's like, I'm like, that day, I'm like, no. Next day, it's like June 17th. It's like, you want to marry my daughter? I'm like, is there another option? I said no. June 18th, same thing. June 19th, same thing. 2 weeks straight, she does the same exact thing. And now she's arguing in court that I'm a bad person whose brain savant should get locked up. Like, do you not know that the courts have common sense, sort of thing? You know, like, yeah, like, how stupid do you think they are? But like, they try to convince me, like, someone from my high school ended up being pretty successful. Law enforcement tried to convince me that the girls were like going over and sleeping with him and stuff like that to try to get me to like start doing it and helping them out. Because like on June 19th, they put an ad on there. It said something like M&T Bank together, and then it said Chevrolet, let's ride together. Basically, they were getting brutally rejected by the girls, and they wanted help. Like, I'm not that guy. I was just like, get the heck off my face. And law enforcement tried to convince me that like girls were like going over and sleeping with him and stuff. It's like 0% chance, absolutely zero. No guy is that stupid. No one's like gonna like let someone file a lawsuit ready the moment your brain savant gets freed, or whatever it is that you're trying to get and do. Like, the second you get the money, there's already like a lawsuit completely filed. Like, you see all these money grabs. Like, a month ago, Miss Deb was like arguing against me, and she was like, his brain savant should get locked up. I didn't know he was a bad person. I was like, the entire year of 2024, Miss Deb was all over me for her daughter. What are the chances she just had a change of heart? And of course she's like, we're gonna let her narrate. She's here to narrate. We're gonna let her narrate. I was just like, this is BS. I said in my video that right there and then, I was like, the day my brain savant gets freed, guess who's gonna be ahead of the line to try to get her daughter married to me? And like, I was like, Miss Deb is. It's like a month ago I made that video, and like I would go to grocery stores and people would like laugh at me in my face. Like there's the guy who's full of himself, and like it was just kind of like it's just it was a little embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie, it was like a month ago. I got so embarrassed I would like look down at grocery stores and like I knew they were like laughing at me, and I knew exactly why, but I also knew I was telling the truth, and I would just look back at them like there's a lot of money that's involved, man, and you don't know the least of it, because it's just kind of like law enforcement is not going to tell anyone. If they tell anyone, they're basically confessing. What they're basically saying is, we did absolutely nothing except for run sex games since 2001, followed by money fraud, and right now we're inhibiting him from being able to study, but that has nothing to do with us being extremely envious of his brain savant. Who's going to buy that? If they said that to people, no one is. So they only tell the truth about them knowing about my brain savant, its monetary potential, to very few people that they have narrate in my trial and stuff like that. And one of those few people obviously is Ms. Deb. Other person obviously is Farley Grady Framer, who made the false testimony against me on November 20th, hence the $60 million price tag blackmail, hence the disgusting incest request on March 7, 2026, 3 times after she was already told February 11th at 3:17 a.m. This is disgusting. Open advertisement for incest. And since June 16th, it's like every single day. It's like, you want to marry my daughter? I'm like, no. June 17th, marry my daughter? No. Marry my daughter? No. And it's like law enforcement tried to convince me that there's like someone in my high school, and they're like, we're like, all the women are going over to sleep with him just to try to get me to like sleep with these girls and like help them out with their sex dreams. It's like, chances of him doing this absolutely zero. No one's mentally retarded, okay? There's no way. Everyone's gonna like help someone file a lawsuit with them, especially when they could just have like a wife and nice life and everything with what they have. Like, who would be stupid enough to do that? Like, absolutely nothing. With all these money grabs out there, like literally for the past week, Miss Deb's been sending me ads for her daughter, Ashley. Started off at like regular Sam's Club, then it went to Ashley's Furniture with a girl like looking over a mattress, and now it's like Ashley's Furniture with a girl literally laying on the mattress. And I was just like trying to go to the Wegmans and like all these grocery stores afterwards, like a week ago, like look back at these people. Like, I'm sorry, sir, you were saying something. You were saying something. You look like you had a joke a month ago when I said that Miss Deb would. I knew her daughter was married. I also know there's a lot of money involved. I'm literally the only triple savant in the world whose powers increase over time. And if you don't believe me, read the artificial intelligence report. And if you don't believe me, check how scared these cowards were when I was in Russia. And if you don't believe me, ask them for a 30-minute brain savant test. Like, literally, like, the facts are all there. So the courts need to also understand the fact that not only did I have a valid excuse for being present near any of law enforcement's sex scheme, money fraud BFFs like Uncle Joey, who could have said anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child yet, but that me being present in that setting around any of law enforcement BFFs was already talked about and discussed with law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, where my mother had told law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child that she was aware that there might have been random people that she would be forced to leave me behind with as a child when I did not even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child to even be left at home alone yet. As my mother said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m., but that my mother would remove me from all of law enforcement's BFFs, basically all settings, the moment she would get the chance to do so, as soon as I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, able to be left at home alone. This was proven from the fact that as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never seen near any of law enforcement's BFFs ever again, regardless of how hard law enforcement tried to get me to meet with their BFFs in the family like Uncle Joey, only to help them run sex scheme ads together. Due to law enforcement sex addiction clearly seen from the recent phone conversations between Junaid, whom law enforcement were helping helping get the contact info for my elementary school teacher, due to which my elementary school teacher's son, who is only about 2 years younger than me, where my female school teacher's son berated Junaid for continuously begging his mother for sex all day and every day continuously. Basically, these people have like a sex addiction problem. And like if you want to copy someone else. Don't copy me. Apparently Junaid's autistic and he lacks social skills. Like, being socially awkward is not something to be proud of. If you watch someone like me who's like socially awkward outside sometimes, we get pretty much really excited over little things, like a protest going on and we're part of that protest and there are a lot of people there. We would get really excited, and it's not really something that, I would lie about. It's not something to be proud of again with. And the other thing is, law enforcement knows, because they have a brain scanner. Every time I would get socially awkward and get start to get hyped up about little things outside, and yeah, pretty much feel too happy about things making me look socially awkward, their brain scanner would tell them, like, this guy is feeling socially awkward right now. He's having a lot of energy for no reason. Brain scanner would definitely tell them, and they know. Okay, so this recent, it's just like, you want to copy someone else. Okay, like autism, and I'm socially awkward. Like, well, I'm not a sex addict. I don't like beg women my mother's age, and like, yeah, get the heck off my face. Don't ever even ask me to help you out with your sex game ads. Who do you think I look like? It's just like, what do I look like to you? Anyways, yeah, you want to copy someone, go copy someone else. Like, seriously. This recent incident clearly shows and proves the fact that law enforcement feels that their job only revolved around either sex addiction or money fraud since the year 2001, when the investigation started, until they found out about my extremely rare and profitable brain savant, and then law enforcement did everything possible to make sure that my brain savant could not get freed or even be seen performing out in the open for even 30 minutes due to nothing but extreme envy of it. The fact that my mother had already spoken with law enforcement beforehand, and my mother had already informed law enforcement about the fact that she was aware that my mother had to leave me with random people who would be willing to adult supervise me for free, and only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and the fact that my single and dependent mother fulfilled her promise the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, never to be seen near any of law enforcement's BFFs like Uncle Joey ever again, due to me being able to be left at home alone after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, when she went to go to work at either fast food restaurants or at factories during the night, and the fact that I was only there near any of law enforcement's BFFs due to the force and necessity of a single and dependent mother, and only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, clearly shows and proves from facts and evidences the fact that children are not held liable under the law, especially when they have not even reached the slightest bit of mental maturity yet in the world, and that it would only be either the adult BFFs of law enforcement, such as Uncle Joey, or law enforcement themselves, who would be blamed for it, since law enforcement did absolutely nothing about any of their BFFs like Uncle Joey saying anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child, but instead, law enforcement only chose to run sex schemes starting from 2001 with Uncle Joey's in-laws, along with money fraud, with the money from the savings of the disability unemployment money fraud still being collected till this very day today. So basically, yeah, that kind of sums it up, pretty much.